Okie dokie, let's get started. Okay. Oh, I lost something. Can people see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So again, thanks to everyone for joining the open source UnionML planning meeting. The agenda for today is just to go through some introductions. So typically, there will be new people in these. So just wanted to get a sense of, who you are and what makes you interested in UnionML. And I'll go into the 014 roadmap that's that we're working on right now. I'll go through like a change in the roadmap structure. Hey, Dan. I'll go through a change in the roadmap structure around documentation issues. So I'll go a little into detail there, but basically we want to kind of separate like documentation, certain kinds of documentation changes from like features. Obviously, there's some overlap there. And since we do have 45 minutes, I don't think we'll spend all of the time on these three first points. So I did want to show off a little bit of the items I'm working on in the 014 roadmap, which is the S3 event demo. So basically, it's a mode of model prediction, model deployment where you kick off a prediction job based on dumping an S3, the file into S3. So I'll go into that a little bit. And then finally go into the model serving RSC, see if any of you folks have any feedback or comments around how we're thinking about model serving and how to integrate with other platforms. So first off, introductions. I'm Niels Bantilan, Chief ML Engineer at Union AI, heading up the UnionML project, which is basically kind of a framework on top of Flight that is machine learning specific. And in terms of design philosophy, it kind of is a successor of application frameworks in Python in that it's very much functional. It's like you define these core objects, data set, and a model, and then each of these expose decorators where you implement certain pieces of the machine learning pipeline. And then from there, it sort of combines and composes those functions in ways that are abstracted away from the user. So for example, you can call model.train, and what happens under the hood is it's constructing a DAG from all the functions that you've created. You can run this locally as Python. You can run it on a Flight backend. And once you have a trained model artifact, you can use Fast API right now to serve model predictions. So that's the quick intro to UnionML. Maybe we can go around quickly just to introduce ourselves. Sorry for the Union AI folks, you're gonna have to reintroduce yourself. So let's start with Samita.
Hey everyone, my name is Samhita. I'm a software engineer and developer advocate at Union AI. And I'm here to contribute and learn what's on the roadmap. So yeah. Dan?
Yeah, I'm Dan Raymer. I am a software engineer with the Union AI team as well. My work focuses mainly on back-end type stuff, but always interested in joining these types of meetings and throwing my input where it's useful. Is Kevin?
Yeah, I'm Kevin. Yeah, I'm software engineer at Union also, and I'm mainly working on the backend part, like Flyte plugin or Flight plugin, anything backend part. And I come here to join the Union OS meeting to learn something any other day about the UnionML ML. Yeah.
And Ali?
Sure. So hi, I'm Ali. I previously used Flight in one of my projects and just want to quickly see how the roadmap for UnionML looks like. I'll be participating in a hackathon in near future, so just wanted to see what the roadmap is like and what is the tool capable of. So just want to quickly drop by and see how things are looking for it. So yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Ali. Looks like Eden dropped out, but no worries. Okay, so here's the roadmap. You can find this on the documentation. It's under the Union OS AI OSS projects. So for the 0.14 release, we're working on a couple of issues. Basically, these two, 39 and 40, are for adding integration tests for various things that are currently not covered. So remote execution of UnionML workflows on a Flight backend. Welcome back, Eden. Testing out certain methods that are currently not covered in the model object. 41 is to add support for S3 event serving in the demo I'll show shortly. And then the last one here is supporting fast registration of UnionML workflows. So these are the other 4 items. I'm not sure. I need to touch base with Eduardo on where things are happening here. But based on where from my understanding so far, I feel like he's working on other stuff. So yeah, I'll circle back with him to see if this is still these are still open. I think in past meetings I'd gone through the other milestones here, but I think I'll just stick with 0.14. Are there any questions about any of these?
When are you planning to release 0.14?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't have a very constant release cadence right now, I think because it's super early on in the project and we don't have too many hands on deck here working on issues. So basically the answer to your question is we'll release it when all these 4 things are done. And that is TBD.
Cool.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier about the docs issue point, over, where is that? Yeah, over here. I separated out documentation that are related to things like examples. So there are a few holes in the documentation today that need to be either clarified. So for example, this one is relating to the existing page serving with AWS Lambda, and there's a few code snippets missing. Unit tests and examples for these 2 ML frameworks, XGBoost and TensorFlow. And then some other examples that are not really tied to specific code changes in the UnionML code base, but would be more lightweight, lightweight examples of how to use the Flight MPI operator in a training job and the SageMaker in a training job. So these, I guess the thinking is with any of these docs issues, people can pick them up, work on them, and they'll just be merged into whatever release happens to be in the running at the time. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know, we're sort of a little spread thin on resources here, but is anyone? Oh, Shivey just left. Okay. Yeah, would anyone be interested in either of these 2? So these would be fairly I actually don't know what the estimate here for these would be. I feel like there's some Flight configuration that's that would be, you know, a little more to learn for a UnionML user who, you know, we assume doesn't really know much about flight.
I can try the MPI issue. Is it okay,
Okay.
if, yeah, I might not be able to get it done anytime soon. So is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I'll just, you know, ping you once a week or so, just to see if you have capacity or you're working on it.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm excited to show this. Hopefully it's working right now. I've got it to sort of work, but to give you a tour of what this actually looks like, let me show you this template. So I created this project by doing UnionML init. Oops. Yeah, UnionML init template basic AWS Lambda S3, and then I gave it some app name. Right, so the resulting folder is here. This is still kind of a work in progress, but it should be working for all intents and purposes. So let me start with the UnionML app. So if you're not familiar with this syntax, I'm just doing a bunch of imports for like the various tools I'll be using. And I'm using the digits data set that ships with sklearn. So again, to zoom out, the whole point of this piece of this feature is, you know, there are different modes of serving. There's batch prediction, there's kind of like API based like function calls, prediction where you hit an endpoint with some like payload, and that payload contains features, and then you get predictions back. And then like, I guess the broad kind of last bucket here that you could maybe further break down is sort of like event-based predictions. So these could be events depending on whatever kind of system you're using, right? So they could be S3 put object events, or they could be like the analog of whatever streaming technology you're using, like Apache Flink or Beam or something, or SQS. So this third type of serving modality, I'll call it, is can get fairly complex, but we're trying to keep it simple. And the first thing we're doing is supporting predictions when some other, you know, external process dumps a file into S3. Okay. So all of this is kind of like UnionML boilerplate. It's like, this is my training data set. How do I get it into, you know, how do I load it from an external source? How do I train my model, generate predictions, and evaluate data? This is additional configuration for a flight backend. So this currently is pointing to a sandbox, a flight sandbox. And this last function here is not really, you know, UnionML specific stuff, right? This is just a Lambda handler for AWS Lambda. So to unpack this a little bit, I'm basically loading my model from an environment variable, and UnionML has like this hard-coded thing where it can load from some environment variable that points to some model path, and that model path contains a model object that UnionML can then load up into memory, into this model artifact. So when I say load from N, basically, I'm assuming that the runtime, the container that is running my Lambda handler, has this model object already in there, right? So I'll show you what that looks like. But assuming that we have our UnionML model loaded up with its artifact, I can iterate through the events records. So if I upload just one file, this event will just contain one element. I get the bucket and key metadata from it. I get the features from S3, which I pass into the model.predict method, producing some predictions. And then I have to implement, how do I upload that back into some target bucket. In this case, we're using the exact same bucket that the features are in, but we're just like uploading it into a different prefix. So this is a lot. And any reactions? Shive?
Yeah, so I just had a question. So could we probably in the future make this kind of a, I guess, vendor free function? So something like a serverless handler where instead of like the S3 client, we'll provide the GCP bucket client. We just have to pass that. And
yes. So that's a perfect segue to the next section, which is that model serving RFC. So this is like, we want to be really careful about this because, there are a lot of trade-offs to having this abstracted kind of handler type convention. But I think we can strike the right balance. So that's a great question. So what we're doing here right now is just providing templates. So when you do UnionML init, and then you give it a specific template, like there's a sort of, it gives you a UnionML project with this kind of implementation that's like not UnionML specific. It's more specific to like the platform that you want to use for serving. This is a lot lighter weight, but potentially more verbose. And that verbosity comes in because we're using AWS SAM CLI to handle all the provisioning of the different resources, right? So I'm not going to go through all of this, but like this is the UnionML function. Actually, this code isn't needed, but this is the file upload event, right? So like, I'm going to create this UnionML app bucket resource, which is referenced down here. I'm going to react to all kind of object creation things. So this actually should be put, but let's leave it here for now. And then it's going to react to events with these conditions of it has to have this features prefix and it has to have a .json suffix. And then this bucket name is provided here. So the bucket that'll be created for this example is the UnionML -example et cetera, et cetera. So like this puts kind of the burden on the user to like figure SAM out, and it'll ship with this template, but you'll have to know how to modify it to like do anything else other than what the template is doing. And then finally, this template ships with a dockerfile.aws lambda. So this is the thing that loads up the model object, right? So I'll show you like the full workflow, right? So you initialize the app. In this simple case, I'm just going to run the app.py file. And as you'll notice at the bottom here, I'm actually training a model, right? So I'm dumping this model object.joblib in this folder right here. So when I build the Docker file for the AWS Lambda handler, I'm copying the app, I'm installing a bunch of requirements, copying the app script in here, copying the model object into the UnionML model path, so it knows where to find it. And then this is just a convention for AWS Lambda. You have to point it to the app and the variable in the module that is the Lambda handler. So the process here is I do SAM build, and I've already built this, and I do SAM deploy, and there might be a few things I need to approve here, but it's, oh, okay. Yeah, I think I deployed this, I ran this right before, so all the changes should be here already. So here we go. I have this bucket here that is the source, both the source and the target bucket for my features and predictions, respectively. And if I go to Lambda, this is the function that was created. And fingers crossed, this should work. So what I'm going to do, just going to manually do this. It's, so I'm going to upload this file into the features prefix. It's going to take a while, a few, maybe a few seconds to a minute. So I've uploaded these sample features to the S3 bucket. And if we go to the Lambda function, this will show up, as I said, in a few minutes. And fingers crossed, there are no bugs, but there could be. Still a work in progress. But the idea is, after this Lambda function runs, there should be another predictions directory here containing the predictions to that file. Any questions here? Cool. So while we're waiting for that, I did want to show a little sneak peek of this RFC that I've been referencing. There's more to it than the kind of like Chevet, what you were alluding to with like a handler. So I'll just jump straight to it, where you can, so there's this high level API, right? Is you define this AWS Lambda service and you give it the model, UnionML model, and produces this service object. And the service object exposes more decorators, right? So this would be kind of the syntax for specifying like the event type. So I'm saying like, I want this, I want UnionML to react to some kind of, this S3 event based on a bucket and based on these criteria. And, I want to also specify some kind of target resource. Again, this could be anything, right? This could be like, in the future case, this could be like GCP or any other type of resource, and UnionML would be responsible for spinning those up. So this adds like a considerable bit of complexity to like what needs to happen under the hood. But you kind of get the idea where, because UnionML already implements all the functions, right? Like how to load features, how to transform them, how to generate predictions. Like the prediction handler, as proposed here, just gets the predictions and then whatever other necessary metadata you need to like handle where those predictions go and how exactly they're written to the target resource. And then from there, you do like some kind of launch command or deploy command. And that's, or actually, no, build. This should be build. And this builds like all the templates I just showed you. And then from there, the idea is that you use whatever CLI or conventions that target infrastructure requires of you. So in this case, you call SAM deploy. Since we don't want to like deal with like like the interface for UnionML is like all the artifacts needed for deployment based on like our opinions on how these things should be composed together. But at that point, we then delegate to like whatever conventions that that tool needs for actually deploying the thing. So this will become a lot clearer when we fleshed out, like, you know, we're not sure if this set of abstractions really will work for, you know, many of the cases we want to support, right? So for BentoML, they have their own conventions for how to set up these handlers and like config files, like YAML config files. Seldon has this like different set of conventions. So the idea, though, Shive, as you propose, like, is we want to kind of like settle on a really nicely balanced API here for these types of services that that can be abstracted and generalized across different integrations. Okay, so hopping back here. So, okay, fingers crossed, this actually did what we wanted. Nope, okay, there's still a bug. Let's check out what the logs say. Dumps, okay. Ugh, there you go. Okay, but you get the idea, right? Like I was dumping to a string instead of a file. I'm not going to go through this entire workflow again, but what we'd expect to see is a predictions prefix, and in that would be the files corresponding to, you know, so imagine like another job that just like dumps features in here periodically with some like unique key. And so that should show up in the predictions prefix under a similar key, you know, so by default, you could just dump it into the same key, but you could like format that key in various ways as you need. Cool. Any questions here? Any like proposals on how to like make this, I don't know, a little neater? Any thoughts?
So I just had like one question. So is there a possibility when we are defining this Lambda handler, so sometimes we might see that if we are loading the model, we might not get a good prediction. So if you want to update the model on the fly and probably retrain and load the model again, so it could happen, right, that if our model performance is not great, we might have other pipelines that will retrain our model with changing of the parameters, and that will delete the model that we have currently saved in our S3 bucket and upload it again. So can we run this, like, so what I'm just trying to visualize is that can we run this instead of a pipeline where we are constantly updating our S3 bucket and then just fetching the latest model that is there, kind of like in an iterative process where.
Yep, I get what you're saying. Yeah, this is a great point. This is also a larger conversation on like the design of UnionML. We've sort of defaulted to be a little more conservative when it comes to these prediction endpoints. Like, we don't want the model version to be in the hot path of this handler for various reasons, right? Like, once I've deployed this model to Lambda, like, there's a benefit to it being immutable. Like, the model doesn't change, and for you to change that model effectively, you'd have to redeploy another Lambda or update. It's like you would take advantage of whatever like versioning or rollback mechanisms that the platform offers. So, you know, in the workflow you mentioned, right, if I wanted to retrain a model, like currently you sort of have to do that manually. And there is, I think, value in this more iterative workflow. I think we just have to be really clear about what modes of deployment would support the more iterative workflow, like, in real life, right? Because if you start at the default behavior of like being able to switch off the model in the hot path of this handler, like you introduce all sorts of possibilities of weird, unexpected behavior. Whereas if you're at any given point in time, your handler, is immutable, then you just get, a nice like safety feature there. So that's a good point. Yeah, and I guess maybe to hint at like what these services could mean in service of that point of like, automatically retraining and automatically redeploying. These services don't have to be just for prediction, right? So in theory, you could have like train on event, and this event system would have to be made a little bit more sophisticated, right? You don't want to retrain just on like one batch of features, right? But if you make it such that this event dumps like a whole data set into the thing, and then based on that, you retrain, like the thing that you're talking about could be made possible here. But again, I think we're slowly trying to figure out what the different use cases are and where, there's always this conversation of should it be in flight or should it be in UnionML? So yeah, a lot of nuances there to hash out. There's also the signaling API, which is coming up. So that's going to open up a lot of things. And we'll have to like figure out where that fits into this, UnionML design. Okay, cool. Any other questions or comments? If not, we can end the planning meeting. Thanks, everyone. I think as the project matures, we'll run this more of like an actual planning meeting. Right now, I think it's building some momentum up. So I think moving forward, this will be like short recap of like existing tasks in the current milestone, and then we'll maybe do some of these kind of demos to show off existing work. Yes, Shive?
I just one final question. So when it comes to the RFC that you're showing, like, do we maintain the RFCs on the UnionML OSS like on GitHub, or?
No, this is currently on my personal or my like Union AI Notion account. I think maybe I can like, once it's finalized, copy paste it into some set of artifacts that are more persistent. I don't know. Maybe GitHub discussions. Yeah.
Actually, I personally prefer Google Docs. I know that's contentious, but it depends on how much commenting you're looking for. If you want to, if it's going to be actively commented on, I think that's easiest. If the emphasis is on like good code syntax highlighting integration, then sure, Notion or HackMD.
Yeah.
My 2 cents. Anyways.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.